Sir, this child lived with me at the orphanage. Claudia's voice broke the silence of that Thursday afternoon. Her hands trembled as she clutched the cleaning cloth, her eyes wide and fixed on the framed photograph above the office fireplace. Richard dropped his coffee cup. He turned so quickly he almost knocked over his chair. What was the new employee talking about? The quiet young woman, who had barely spoken to him since starting 3 weeks ago, was as pale as paper. This child here, he lived with me at Street Michael's children's home. We shared the same dorm. His name was Leo. A shiver ran down Richard's spine. Leo, a name he hadn't heard in almost 30 years. The name of his twin brother, who disappeared when they were both 4 years old. That's not possible. My brother died a long time ago. Claudia shook her head as tears began to fall. I don't know anything about a death, Mr. Caldwell. But I know that boy lived at the children's home until he was 16. He was my best friend. He protected me when the older kids picked on me. Richard crossed the office in 3 strides, taking the photo from her hands. The boy in the portrait smiled, the same dark eyes he saw in the mirror every morning, the same face, the same crooked smile on the left side. Are you sure? Absolutely. I'll never forget that face. Leo always spoke of a twin brother, a big house, a father who cooked. Richard felt a lump in his throat. His father had been a chef. That's why he'd followed the same profession. He said you two would reunite one day, that his brother would never stop looking for him. Soft footsteps on the stairs interrupted their conversation. Isabella appeared at the office door, clutching the teddy bear she hadn't let go of since the accident. The 7-year-old girl's face was pale, and her eyes were frightened. Dad, is something wrong? No, honey, go back to your room. But Isabella looked at Claudia, and something in the employee's eyes seemed to calm the girl. Hi, Bella, are you okay, sweetie? It's just a boring grown-up conversation. Isabella stood still for a few more seconds, looking from the employee to her father. Then she nodded slowly and went upstairs. But before disappearing down the hallway, she turned once more, as if to make sure Claudia was still there. When the girl was gone, Richard sank onto the couch. His legs could no longer support the weight of that revelation. Tell me everything. Everything you know about him. Claudia pulled up a chair and sat opposite him. She took a deep breath, trying to control her emotions. Leo had a crescent-shaped birthmark behind his left ear and was left-handed, but he could use both hands to write and draw. Richard closed his eyes. Leo had exactly that mark, and their father, a chef, had taught them both to use both hands to hold a knife and train their coordination. My God, he always carried a little notebook, you know? He drew all the time. Houses with gardens, a piano, 2 children holding hands, and always a man with a chef's hat. Richard's voice was low, almost a whisper. My father wore a chef's hat at home. Claudia nodded. Leo knew. He remembered so many things. He remembered you calling him Champ. He remembered your mother playing the piano. He never forgot. Why didn't anyone believe him? Why didn't anyone look for his family? Because the document said he was an orphan, that his adoptive parents had died in an accident. Everyone thought his stories were just a child's imagination. Richard covered his face with his hands, trying to process it all. If Claudia was right, and everything indicated she was, then his brother had been alive all these years, alive and waiting to be found. Claudia served them both water. They stayed there in the office as the afternoon faded and the golden sunlight streamed through the windows. Before I continue talking about Leo, I need you to understand one thing. I grew up in that children's home from the age of 5. My parents died in a bus accident on a major interstate. I had no one else. Richard gestured for her to continue. Leo arrived there when I was about 12. He appeared out of nowhere, brought by a social worker. He was 9 years old. They said his adoptive parents had just died in a car accident, meaning he lived with another family from 4 to 9 years old? Yes, but he swore he had another family before that, his real family, and that one day he would return to them. At the children's home, he was quiet, always drawing, but he was strong. When the older kids picked on me, he defended me. He sometimes got beaten, but he wouldn't let anyone hurt me. Claudia smiled, lost in memories. We became best friends. I took care of him when he got sick, and he protected me. We promised we would never separate, that when we left the children's home, we would be a family. But he ran away at 16 after a bad fight with one of the caretakers. He said he couldn't wait anymore, that he was going to look for his brother alone. I tried to stop him, but he had already decided. And you never saw him again, never again. I looked for years. I went to shelters, police stations, hospitals, but it was as if he had vanished, until I gave up. I thought something bad had happened. Her voice broke. Richard saw the tears return. I'm so sorry, Claudia. She quickly wiped her face. When I saw the photo here, it was like time went back. All the memories came at once. You did the right thing by telling me. I believe you. Everything you said matches what I remember, things no one else could know. The two sat in silence for a moment, a heavy silence, laden with years of pain and loss. Can I ask you something? How is Isabella doing now? Richard stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden. My wife died a year ago. It was a car accident on the lake road. A drunk driver hit her head on. She died instantly. Isabella didn't see the accident, but she realized her mother wasn't coming back. She waited for me at the window all night. When I told her what had happened, she went into shock. She didn't speak for weeks. Claudia listened in silence. Then came the panic attacks, the fear of leaving the house. She locked herself in her room, didn't eat properly, didn't talk to anyone. The doctors said it was severe social phobia caused by trauma. And now? Richard turned to Claudia. Better, thanks to you. I barely did anything. You did what no therapist could do in a year. The memory came back to him clearly. It was Claudia's second week of work. He was in the office when he heard a strange noise coming from upstairs. He ran up, fearing Isabella was having another attack. But when he reached the hallway, he saw something he would never forget. Isabella's bedroom door was ajar, and through the gap, he saw his daughter sitting on the bed, holding a small yellow paper note. She was smiling. It had been so long since he'd seen his daughter smile that he had even forgotten what it looked like. Isabella read the note again and let out a laugh. Then she stood up, went to the door, and opened it fully. Claudia was on the other side, holding a plate with a sandwich and juice. I thought you might want a snack. Isabella took the plate without saying anything, but before closing the door, she looked at Claudia and whispered, "Thank you." It was just one word, but it was the first Isabella had said in weeks. From then on, Claudia started leaving notes under the door every day. Notes with funny drawings, short stories, bad jokes. And little by little, the girl began to open the door, first just a crack, then a little more, until one day she left her room. "Thank you," Richard said suddenly, "for giving me my daughter back, for giving me hope of finding my brother, for being here." She blushed and looked down. "I just did what was right." The next day, Richard called Claudia to the office. An open wooden box lay on the table. "This is all that's left of Leo." Inside the box were old photos, a pair of small shoes, a faded cap, and a sketchbook. Claudia picked up the sketchbook carefully, as if it might break. She opened it to the first page and her eyes widened. My God, he drew exactly the same way when he was a boy. The drawings were simple but full of details. A house with a garden, two boys holding hands, a piano in the living room, a man with a chef's hat. "These drawings are from before he disappeared," Richard explained. "My mother kept everything when he vanished. She could never throw anything away." Claudia slowly turned the pages, touching each drawing as if she could feel the boy's presence there. "I need to tell you how he disappeared," Richard said, sitting in his chair. "If we're going to look for him, you need to know everything." Claudia closed the notebook and paid attention. It was a Sunday morning. Leo and I were 4 years old. My father decided to take us for a walk in Lakeside Park. My mother stayed home because she had a headache. He paused. His voice grew heavier. "We were playing by the water's edge. There were other adults nearby, other families. My father got distracted for just a few seconds to talk to a friend. When he looked back, Leo had disappeared, and then everyone started looking. Firefighters, police divers searched for days. They found Leo's cap floating in the water, but they never found his body. There were witnesses who swore they saw him fall into the water. After 3 months of searching, he was declared dead by drowning. But he didn't die. No. Someone took him. Someone faked the drowning and took my brother. My family was never the same. My mother fell into a deep depression, stopped teaching music, stopped playing piano. She would just stare at his photo, waiting for him to come back. My father took refuge in work, opened the Gilded Spoon restaurant, and practically lived there. And I grew up with guilt. I thought I should have held his hand, but you were a child. How could you have known? My head knows, but my heart doesn't. My mother died when I was 15. The doctors said it was from complications of depression, but I know she died of sadness from losing Leo. My father lived another 10 years, taught me everything about cooking. When he died, I inherited the restaurant. I turned it into one of the best in the city to honor him. It was my way of keeping them alive, him and my brother. The two fell silent. Outside, birds sang in the garden's trees. "I'm hiring a private investigator," Richard said. "I'm going to comb through every file, every document. If Leo is alive somewhere, I will find him, and I will help in everything I can." "Why do you do this? You barely know me." "Because Leo was my brother too, not by blood, but by heart. and I promised I would never give up on him. 2 days later, it was Saturday morning when the intercom rang. Richard went to answer it. The surprise almost knocked him over. Sonia, his ex-fiancée, was at the door, smiling, holding a bakery bag and a bouquet of flowers. "Hi, Richard. Long time no see. I brought warm bread and flowers for the garden. What are you doing here?" "I came because I missed you. Can we talk?" She didn't wait for an answer. She walked past him and entered the house as if she still lived there. "Wow, everything's the same, even the smell of coffee." "Sonia, we broke up 2 years ago. You can't just show up like this without warning." I know, but I missed you. Isabella, this house. Can I stay for a few minutes?" Before Richard could respond, Claudia appeared at the kitchen door, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mr. Caldwell, coffee's ready. Do you want me to?" She stopped upon seeing the woman in the living room. Sonia looked at the employee, noticing her simple uniform, her hair tied in a ponytail, her hands still damp. "Hi, you're new here, aren't you?" "Yes, I started 3 weeks ago." "Oh, that's good." The house needed someone to take good care of things. The tone was sweet, but it hit a blade. Claudia noticed, but didn't respond. She just nodded and returned to the kitchen. Sonia waited for her to disappear and turned to Richard. "She seems very proper. Claudia is excellent at what she does, I imagine." She walked to the living room and sat on the couch, making sure to get comfortable. Richard sighed. He knew Sonia wouldn't leave anytime soon. The conversation unfolded with Sonia asking about the restaurant, about business. Richard replied with monosyllables, visibly uncomfortable. When Isabella came down the stairs and saw Sonia, she stopped halfway down the steps. She didn't take another step. "Isabella, come give Aunt Sonia a hug, sweetie." The girl stood still, looking alternately at the woman and her father. She only said good morning in a low voice. Then her eyes went straight to the kitchen door. "Bella, my love, I made the pancakes you like. Come eat them while they're warm." Isabella's face lit up. She ran down the rest of the stairs and went straight to the kitchen, passing Sonia without even looking at her. Sonia stood there with a frozen smile on her face. She's quite attached to the employee, isn't she? Claudia helped Isabella a lot. She was the only person who could get her to leave her room. How nice of her. But the way she said it made it clear she didn't think it was nice at all. She stayed a few more minutes trying to make conversation, asking if Richard was seeing anyone. Then she picked up her purse. "I think I should go. I just wanted to stop by and say hello. We could have dinner sometime, just the two of us to catch up." "I don't know if that's a good idea. Please, just dinner as old friends." Richard hesitated. "I'll think about it." "Perfect. I'll call you then. Bye, Richard." She gave him a long kiss on the cheek and left. When the door closed, Richard stood there. Something was wrong. Sonia never did anything without a hidden motive. In the kitchen, Isabella was eating pancakes while Claudia washed the dishes. "I don't like that woman," Isabella said suddenly. "Why, sweetie?" "Because she's fake." She smiled at me, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Claudia stopped washing dishes and looked at the girl. "You're very clever. You know that? My dad always says that." "Well, he's absolutely right." The two smiled. Outside, Sonia was sitting in her car, but hadn't started the engine yet. She pulled out her phone and opened Richard's Instagram. She scrolled through the feed until she found what she was looking for, a recent photo. Isabella sitting at the kitchen table, smiling while stirring something in a bowl. And in the background, slightly out of focus, Claudia could be seen. The caption read, "My daughter is smiling again, thanks to the one who brought light back into our home." Sonia clenched her teeth. So that was it. The employee had gotten involved in their lives, had won over the girl. And by the way, Richard had spoken of her. Perhaps she was winning him over too. She opened her browser and typed the full name she had seen on the uniform's name tag, Claudia Ferreira Duarte. She started searching social media, old news articles, anything she could use. Because if there was one thing Sonia knew how to do well, it was uncover secrets. And everyone had a skeleton in their closet. 2.5 weeks had passed since Richard hired the private investigator. During that time, he and Claudia had spent several nights in the office, reviewing old documents, yellowed photos, and records the detective was obtaining. Isabella had started coming down for dinner with them sometimes. She still had difficult days, but they were fewer and further between. One Thursday afternoon, the phone rang. Richard was alone in the office. Claudia had gone to the market with the shopping list. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Frank." "Frank, did you find anything?" "Yes, and I recommend you sit down to hear it. Your brother's death certificate has several inconsistencies. It was issued based solely on testimonies, without a body. and I discovered that one of the main witnesses died 6 months later, under strange circumstances. A hit-and-run never resolved on a busy city street. What do you mean, strange? The case was filed as an accident, but there are details that don't add up. There's more. I found records of a nurse who worked at the general hospital at the time of the alleged drowning. 3 days after your brother's case, she resigned, took her family, and disappeared. Changed cities, changed names, was never seen around here again. What does this mean? It means someone was paid to turn a blind eye, or to actively help. But there's more, sir. I managed to get access to the children's home records. There's a child registered as Leo Silva, who entered Street Michael's Children's Home exactly 2 days after your brother's disappearance. Age upon entry, 4 years old. Reason for admission, adoptive parents deceased in a car accident. It was him, Richard whispered. All indications point to it. I'll continue investigating, but there's a real possibility that your brother was kidnapped and sold to a family who couldn't adopt legally. When that family died in the accident, the boy ended up in the children's home with a false identity. How long do you need to gather all the evidence? A few more weeks, maybe a month. These are very old documents. I'll take it slow so as not to raise suspicions. Do whatever it takes. Money is not an issue. The call ended. Richard sat there with the phone still in his hand, processing everything. 30 years. 30 years of lies. 30 years believing his brother had drowned when, in fact, he was alive. Abandoned in a children's home just a few miles away. The office door opened. Claudia entered with 2 market bags. I found the chocolate Isabella likes. It was on sale and she stopped upon seeing the expression on Richard's face. Is something wrong? The detective called. You were right about everything. Claudia dropped the bags on the floor. He found Leo? Not yet, but he found evidence that he was kidnapped, that the drowning was a staged event, that he was sold to a family and ended up in the children's home when that family died. My God, Richard stood up and went to the window. His hands trembled. He was alive the whole time, Claudia. Alive and waiting. And I didn't know. I didn't search properly. I accepted what they told me and moved on. You were a child. You couldn't have known. But then I grew up. I became an adult. I could have investigated. I could have questioned. But I didn't do anything. His voice came out stronger than he intended. Claudia took a step back, startled. Richard realized and took a deep breath. Sorry, I didn't mean to yell. I understand. You're processing a lot. He returned to his chair, running his hands over his face. What if it's too late? What if we can't find him? We will. How are you so sure? Claudia approached, but kept a respectful distance. Because I know Leo, and if he talked about his brother so much, it's because he never gave up. He's out there, and we'll find him. I'll make some tea, she finally said. You need to breathe a little. Thank you, Claudia. She picked up the bags and went to the kitchen. When the door closed, Richard dropped his head into his hands. Almost 30 years of lies. Almost 30 years of unnecessary guilt. And now, finally, there was hope of finding his brother. But along with hope came fear. Fear that it was too late. Fear that Leo wouldn't want to know him anymore. Fear of discovering that his brother had suffered too much. Claudia returned 15 minutes later with a cup of chamomile tea, placing it on the table without saying anything. Sir, can I say something? Of course. You didn't fail, Leo. You were deceived. Your whole family was deceived. It's not your fault. I should have suspected. I should have investigated. How could you? You were a child, then a teenager dealing with your mother's death, then an adult trying to save your father's restaurant. When would you have had time to question something everyone said was true? He looked at her. Claudia stood firm, her eyes full of certainty. You are very wise for your age. You know that. I learned early on that blaming yourself for the past changes nothing. We can only change what we do from now on. And what do I do from now on? Keep looking. Don't give up. And when you find Leo, hug him and ask for forgiveness. Not for failing, but for taking so long. Richard finally drank the tea. It was sweet, exactly as he liked it. Thank you for everything. I promise we will find him. Sonia hadn't wasted any time. 3 weeks ago, she had hired a private investigator to uncover everything about Claudia. The man brought her a complete dossier. That's when Sonia found gold. Claudia had worked in the house of a wealthy family 2 years ago. She left after 6 months, without a letter of recommendation, without notice. Sonia called the former employer, a woman named Mrs. Thompson, with a sour voice full of resentment. Claudia, that viper, stole from me. Sonia sat in her chair, smiling. Tell me everything. She stole a gold necklace from my mother, a family heirloom with sentimental value. By the time I found out, she had already fled. I filed a police report, but they never found her. I have all the documents. If you want, I can send them to you. Send me everything. Mrs. Thompson emailed the police report, photos of the missing necklace, and even the messages she had sent Claudia, accusing her of theft. Sonia printed everything, but knew it wasn't enough. She needed something more official, something that looked like a real court document. She called a well-known lawyer, a scrupulous man who would do anything for money. I need you to create a document, a fake labor lawsuit. That's a crime, Sonia. I know, and I'll pay you very well for it. How much? Send me the details. 3 days later, Sonia had a perfect document, a labor lawsuit by Claudia Ferreira Duarte against the Thompson family with a counter-accusation for theft, so well done that at first glance it would pass for authentic. Now she just needed the right moment to use it. Meanwhile, she started appearing at the mansion more frequently, always with some excuse. She brought cake, she brought flowers, she brought gifts for Isabella. Richard let her in without realizing the poison she carried with her. On one of these visits, Sonia managed to be alone in the kitchen with Claudia. You work very well, Clau. Can I call you Clau? How long have you been working here? A month and a half. Wow, such a short time and already so close to the family. You're lucky. And where did you work before? At another family's house. Why did you leave? Claudia, she tensed. It didn't work. Ah, I understand. Sometimes we just don't fit in, right? But here you fit in perfectly. Isabella adores you. And Richard also seems to like you quite a bit. He's a good boss. Just a boss. Claudia looked at her. What are you referring to, ma'am? Nothing. Nothing. It just seemed interesting how close you two are. He trusts you a lot. I do my job well. Of course. Sonia picked up her purse. Well, I'm off. I just came to drop off the cake. When she left, Claudia felt a tightness in her chest. There was something about that woman that was pure danger. 2 days later, Sonia returned. This time she brought a friend. Richard, this is Deborah. She works in human resources. I was telling her how careful you are with the house, with Isabella. She wanted to give you some safety advice. Deborah was a woman in her 40s, serious and professional looking. Mr. Caldwell, in HR, we always recommend doing background checks on all household staff, especially those who have contact with children. Richard frowned. Claudia has references. I checked them. References are important, but sometimes they don't tell the whole story. There are things that only appear in a more in-depth investigation. Labor lawsuits, for example, debts, criminal records. Claudia has none of that. Deborah and Sonia exchanged a look. Are you sure? Sonia asked. Richard felt uncomfortable. Yes, I am. But the seed of doubt had been planted. That night he stayed awake late. He picked up his phone and was about to search Claudia's name, but he felt ridiculous. She had saved Isabella. She had brought hope of finding Leo. Why would he doubt her now? 3 weeks later, Richard hosted an informal dinner at the mansion. Close friends, 4 couples, light conversation. He hired a catering service. Claudia just needed to help serve drinks and keep everything in order. The afternoon passed peacefully. Isabella helped set the table, excited because she could greet the guests before going up to her room. Everything was going well until the intercom rang at 7 p.m. It was Sonia. Richard. Hi. I came to help with dinner. I didn't invite you, Sonia. I know. But when you mentioned dinner last week, I thought I'd lend a hand. You know me. I love a party. She entered before he could protest. Claudia served the drinks, always polite and discreet. Sonia watched her every move like a hawk. It was during the appetizers that she made her move. Claudia was passing with a tray of canapés when Sonia stumbled into her. It wasn't a hard bump, but it was enough to make the tray wobble. Claudia managed to hold it, but one of the canapés fell to the floor. Careful, Clau. Oh dear, almost everything fell. The guests looked. Claudia blushed and bent down to pick up the canapé. Sorry, I'll clean it up. Richard realized something was wrong, but couldn't identify what. No problem, Claudia. Just clean it up and bring another tray. She quickly went to the kitchen. Sonia waited until dessert to drop the bomb. The conversation was lively when she pulled out her phone. Guys, speaking of which, do you check the backgrounds of your household staff? Martha replied. Of course, it's always dangerous to let anyone in without knowing who they are. Exactly, I always do that too. That's why I got worried when I discovered something about Claudia. The atmosphere instantly changed. Richard felt a knot in his stomach. Sonia, don't do this. But she was already showing her phone screen to the guests. Look, labor lawsuit. She sued her previous family for unpaid wages, but the family filed a countersuit. alleging jewelry theft. George, a businessman in his 60s, took the phone to get a better look. "This is serious. Property theft." "The case was dismissed," Richard said, his voice louder than normal. There was no proof, but Sonia had already spread the poison. Martha grimaced. "I would never hire someone with a record, even if the case is closed. Where there's smoke, there's fire." The others nodded. Claudia had come out of the kitchen with the dessert tray. She stopped at the door, hearing the conversation. She saw all the guests looking at Sonia's phone, whispering and making gestures of disapproval. She instantly understood what had happened. She took a deep breath and entered the dining room. She placed the desserts on the table with steady hands, though inside she was trembling. George looked at her with disdain. "Miss, could you get my wallet? I left it in my jacket by the entrance." Claudia was about to go get it when he added, "Actually, never mind. I prefer to go myself. It's safer." The women chuckled softly. Claudia felt her face burn, but she kept her head high. She returned to the kitchen and leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. Outside, Richard was furious. "Sonia, you had no right to do that. I have the right to protect the people I love, and you and Isabella are important to me. You humiliated Claudia in front of everyone. I told the truth. If the truth humiliates, the problem isn't me." The guests left shortly after, all with hurried excuses. When the last one left, Richard turned to Sonia. "Leave, and don't come back." Sonia picked up her purse, her eyes glinting with both anger and satisfaction. As she passed the kitchen, she whispered to Claudia, "This isn't your place. The sooner you accept it, the better." And she left. Richard entered the kitchen. Claudia was washing dishes vigorously, her head down. "Claudia, I'm so sorry. She had no right. No need to apologize, Mr. Caldwell. I know my place. It's not about place. It's about respect. And she disrespected you. She showed a document. Is it true or not?" Richard remained silent. "It's true there's a lawsuit, but it was dismissed. There was no proof of anything. But it exists. It exists. My previous employer accused me of stealing a necklace because her husband kept looking at me. She invented the theft to fire me. I filed a police report. I tried to defend myself, but I didn't have money for a lawyer. The case was dismissed, and I moved to start over. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because I was ashamed. Because I knew that even if it was a lie, people would look at me differently. And you were right." She looked at him with reddened eyes. "You're looking at me differently now." Richard opened his mouth to deny it, but couldn't because she was right. Claudia went back to the dishes. Richard stood there for a moment longer, not knowing what to say. Then he went up to his room and closed the door. Claudia finished cleaning everything. She went up to her room and locked herself in. She sat on the bed and let the tears fall. Because for the first time since she had arrived there, she realized that no matter how much she worked, how much she tried, to them, she would always just be the cleaner, the poor girl from the children's home, someone they could discard at any moment. The next day, the atmosphere in the mansion was tense. Richard could barely look at Claudia at breakfast. Isabella noticed something was wrong. "Dad, Clau is sad. She cried during the night. I heard her." "How do you know?" "I woke up thirsty and heard a noise in her room. She was crying softly." In the afternoon, when Richard was in his office reviewing documents from the investigation into Leo, the intercom rang. It was Sonia, and she wasn't alone. "Richard, this is Nancy. She has 20 years of experience as a housekeeper. She worked for the Mendez family, the bank owners. I thought you'd want to meet her. I'm not looking for a housekeeper. Not yet. But after what happened yesterday, I thought you'd want to reconsider your options." He was about to ask them to leave when Isabella appeared at the top of the stairs. "Who is she?" the girl asked, pointing at Nancy. "Hi, Bella. This is Nancy, a wonderful housekeeper. Your father is thinking of hiring her." "No, I'm not," Richard said firmly. But Sonia ignored him. "Nancy cooks, cleans, organizes events. She's much better than Clau." Isabella completed, coming down the stairs. "No one is better than Clau. Sweetie, Claudia is nice, but she's not trustworthy." "Of course she's trustworthy," Isabella shouted. "Isabella," Richard reprimanded her. "Don't talk like that." "But it's true. This woman keeps bad-mouthing Clau all the time." Sonia forced a smile. "My love, I just want the best for you and your father. And Claudia, she's not good for you." "Yes, she is." "No, she's not. She's only here for the money. She's not your real friend." "Yes, she is." Isabella began to cry. "She's my friend." At that moment, Claudia appeared at the kitchen door. She had heard everything. Isabella ran to her and hugged her tightly around the waist. "Clau, don't let them send you away." Claudia hugged the girl, but looked at Richard. "If you want me to go, Mr. Caldwell, I'll go without any problem. Sonia seized the moment. See? She herself knows she has no future here. I didn't say that. But you thought it. You know she's not good enough for this family. Claudia gently released Isabella. The problem isn't that I'm not good enough. The problem is that you won't accept that you lost. Sonia turned red. I didn't lose anything. Richard is mine. Always has been. He was never yours. You yourself broke up with him because he wasn't ready. But now that his wife has died, he's free, and you won't let a simple maid steal what you think is yours. Richard finally reacted. Sonia, that's enough. Get out of my house now. She turned to Claudia. You showed up here with an absurd story about a missing brother. You planned everything to get close to him. First you won over Isabella, and now you're trying to win him over. I didn't plan anything. I came to work. That's all. Liar. You saw an opportunity. A rich, widowed man, with a daughter who needs attention. Sonia, I'm counting to 3, Richard said, taking a step forward. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. You'll regret this. She stole from her previous employer, and she'll steal from you too. 1. Richard, listen. 2. Sonia grabbed her purse, her eyes filled with rage. Nancy ran after her. The door slammed shut. The silence that followed was heavy. Isabella still hugged Claudia, crying softly. Richard looked at them, saw the pain on Claudia's face, the confusion on his daughter's. Isabella, go up to your room. But Dad, please. The girls slowly let go of Claudia and went up the stairs, looking back at each step. When she disappeared from view, Richard turned to Claudia. I need to know the truth, the whole truth. I already told you the truth about Leo, about the lawsuit, about everything. But you didn't tell me before. You hid it. Because I was ashamed. Because I knew you would look at me the way you're looking at me now, as if I were a liar, a gold digger, as if everything I did here was worth nothing. Richard ran a hand over his face, exhausted. I don't know what to believe anymore. Claudia felt her heart break. Then maybe it's better if I go. He remained silent. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. And that silence hurt more than any shout. I'll pack my bags, she said in a low voice. She went up the stairs slowly, each step weighing more than the previous one. Richard was left alone in the living room, sat on the couch, and covered his face with his hands. Isabella had heard everything from her bedroom door. She saw Claudia pass down the hallway, her eyes red. Claudia stopped, but didn't turn around. Everything will be okay, Bella. You're a strong girl. You'll be fine. Are you leaving? Silence. You promised you'd stay. Claudia finally turned around, knelt in front of the girl. Sometimes we can't keep promises, sweetie. Not because we don't want to, but because the world doesn't let us. I don't want you to go. My dad needs to trust you. I know, but he chose not to trust me. She hugged the girl tightly, then entered her room and closed the door. Isabella stood in the hallway, crying silently. Because of all the things her mother's death had taken from her, this was the worst. The hope that someone would finally stay. Claudia didn't leave that day. Richard asked her to stay until the weekend while he decided what to do. She accepted because she needed the money, but everything had changed. Mrs. Davis, the cook who had always been so kind, now treated her coldly. Sonia had called and told her everything about the lawsuit. On Monday morning, when Claudia went to help in the kitchen, as she always did, she found the door locked. Mrs. Davis, I need to get things for Mr. Caldwell's breakfast. The door opened just a crack. The cook handed her a tray, already prepared. I already made it. You don't need to come in, but I always help, ma'am. You don't need to anymore. The door closed. Claudia stood there with the tray in her hands, swallowed a sob, and took the coffee to the office. Later, she went to hang clothes on the line. She found her spare uniform torn in half. Someone had cut it with scissors. She took it to the laundry room, where Mr. Henderson, the caretaker, kept his sewing supplies. Mr. Henderson, my uniform is torn. Do you have a needle and thread? He barely looked at her. No, but you always do. Look somewhere else. He turned his back and walked away. Claudia sewed the uniform herself in her room with a thread she found in an old drawer. The next day, her lunch disappeared from the fridge. She had left the food there in the morning. At lunchtime, it was gone. She searched the entire kitchen. Mrs. Davis, have you seen my food? I haven't seen anything. And look, if I were you, I wouldn't leave food in the house fridge. It's not your place. Claudia didn't answer. That day, she ate cookies with tea. The following days were worse. Small, constant cruelties. Someone knocked over her bucket in the area she had just cleaned. They hid the cleaning products, rang her room's intercom in the middle of the night, and ran away. Claudia endured everything in silence, did her job, kept her distance from everyone, and survived. Isabella was the only one who still treated her normally, but the girl had also changed. She started spending more time in her room again, having nightmares again. One day, Claudia was cleaning the hallway when she heard voices coming from the kitchen. Mrs. Davis was talking loudly on the phone. "Yes, daughter, I wouldn't let a person like that get near the food. Who guarantees she doesn't steal, or worse, put something in the food? Those people have no scruples." Claudia felt a lump in her throat, returned to her room, and sat on the bed. She looked around. That tiny room had become a home. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She had security, she had Isabella, she had the hope of finding Leo. Now she was going to lose everything. She picked up her phone and opened the old photo of her friend from the children's home. He smiled with his patched shirt and disheveled hair. "Forgive me, Leo. I tried to help your brother find you, but I couldn't. I'm not strong enough." She lay on her side and hugged the pillow. She didn't cry. She no longer had tears, just exhaustion. Exhaustion from fighting, exhaustion from trying to prove she was good enough, exhaustion from a world that always put her in the same place, down, alone, disposable. 3 days had passed since the confrontation with Sonia. Richard had spent that time locked in his office, divided between the investigation into Leo and the confusion in his own head. The detective had called with news. He had located the retired social worker who had worked in the children's home region 20 years ago. A good lead, perhaps the best yet. But Richard could barely concentrate because every time he thought of Leo, he thought of Claudia, of the accusations, of the doubt Sonia had planted that was growing like a disease. On Thursday morning, he made a decision. He called Claudia to the office. She entered in an immaculate uniform, her hair tied back, her posture erect, but she had deep dark circles under her eyes. She had lost weight. "Please sit down." She sat on the edge of the chair with her hands in her lap. "I've spent the last few days thinking about everything that happened, about Sonia's accusations, about this case." Claudia waited in silence. "I believe you about the theft, I mean. I believe it was a setup by that employer." She released the breath she had been holding, but felt her heart sink. "But I need to think about Isabella. She was very affected by all this, and I noticed something that worries me. She's very attached to you. She calls you, my Clau. She doesn't want anyone else to take care of her. She doesn't want anyone else to get close. This isn't bad. She's opening up again. But what if you leave one day? What if you need to leave? Find another job?" Claudia understood what he was getting at. "You want me to leave soon so she doesn't suffer as much later. I don't want you to leave, but I need you to keep your distance. You take care of the cleaning, that's all. No spending time with Isabella. No baking bread together. No little notes. No conversations. Just work. Just work." Claudia remained silent. When she spoke, her voice was low but firm. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Are you really worried about Isabella's attachment, or are you afraid of your own attachment?" Richard turned to her. "What do you mean?" Isabella got better. She started laughing, eating, living again. "But now that Sonia put doubts in your head, you're scared. Scared to trust me? Scared to get close. So you're using Isabella as an excuse." "I'm not using anyone as an excuse." "Then why didn't you defend me when Sonia humiliated me in front of everyone? Why did you stay silent while she said those things? You sent her away later. Later, after the damage was already done. When I needed you, you stayed silent." They looked at each other. The weight of unspoken words filled the space between them. "Just do as I asked," Richard said, his voice softer. "Please, I will. But it's not for Isabella. It's because I need the job. And you need to know one thing. Deep down, you don't believe me. You want to believe? You're trying to convince yourself, but the doubt is there. And as long as it's there, no matter what I do, I'll always be the poor maid who might be a liar. Isn't that right?" "It is, and we both know it." She left the office. Richard was left alone with her words echoing in the empty office. In the afternoon, Isabella came downstairs looking for Claudia. She found her cleaning the second-floor bathroom. "Clau, can we make cookies?" Claudia stopped scrubbing, turned around with a heavy heart upon seeing the hopeful little girl. "Not today, Bella. I have a lot of work." "Then tomorrow?" "Tomorrow either. I'll be very busy." Isabella frowned. "But we always do things together." "I know, but your dad thinks it's better if I just work without doing other things." "Why?" "Your dad just wants to protect you. He's afraid you'll get sad if I leave one day." "But you won't leave. You promised." Claudia knelt in front of the girl, held her little shoulders gently. "Sometimes we can't keep promises, sweetie, not because we don't want to, but because the world complicates things. You're going to leave just like Mom." Claudia hugged the girl tightly. "Your mom didn't want to go, Bella. She wanted to stay with you forever. Life sometimes takes people away, but it's not because they wanted to go. Isabella broke free from the hug. Her eyes were full of tears. Yes, everyone leaves. Mom left. Clau is leaving. One day Dad will leave too, and I'll be alone. She ran off. Claudia remained kneeling on the bathroom floor, the sponge still in her hand. Another broken promise. Another hurt girl. That night, Richard tried to talk to Isabella, but the girl locked herself in her room. Honey, open up. We need to talk about Claudia. Go away. You're mean. I'm trying to protect you. You're lying. You're scared. Just like when you were scared to be near me after Mom died. The words hit him like a punch. Isabella, it's true. You were scared and stopped being near me. Now you're scared of Clau, and you're pushing her away. Richard didn't know how to respond because she was right. He went down the stairs slowly. The house was silent, a heavy silence. He passed through the kitchen. Claudia was washing the dinner dishes that no one had eaten. Didn't want dinner again, did you? Claudia asked without looking at him. You'll be fine. Kids are strong. Richard stood in the doorway. And you'll be fine? Claudia turned off the faucet, slowly dried her hands. I always am. Those of us from the children's home always are, because if we're not, there's no one to take care of us. She turned around. Good night, Mr. Caldwell. She walked past him and went up to her room. Richard was left alone in the kitchen. The sink empty, the house empty, his heart empty. He had gotten what he wanted. He had created distance. He had protected himself and his daughter from the danger of getting too attached. But why did he feel like he had lost something important, something he might never be able to recover? Sonia had planned every detail. 2 days after the confrontation with Richard, she put her plan into motion. On a Tuesday morning, she waited for Mrs. Davis to leave for shopping and followed her to the local market. Mrs. Davis, what a coincidence. The cook turned around uncomfortably. Miss Sonia, how are you? Can I talk to you for a minute? It's important. The two went to the market cafe. Sonia ordered 2 espressos. How are things at the house? Complicated. The young lady is still there. Mr. Caldwell set some rules. She can't be near Isabella, but she's still working. And how is Isabella? She's gone back to her room. Doesn't eat well. She's exactly like she was before Claudia arrived. Sonia shook her head, feigning concern. How sad. And the worst part is, no one really knows what she's like. Mrs. Davis lowered her voice. That's what I say. That lawsuit made me wary. Sonia leaned forward. Look, I didn't want to say this, but you have to know. I did a more in-depth investigation on her, and the family who accused her of theft was right. I found evidence, but the case was dismissed because she fled before the trial, changed cities, changed everything. My God. Sonia took an envelope from her purse. Inside were copies of alleged statements, photos of the missing necklace. Look, this is the necklace she stole. It was a family heirloom. The employer was devastated. Mrs. Davis looked at the photos, horrified. And Mr. Caldwell knows about this. He wouldn't listen. He's blind. Sonia put the envelope away. That's why I'm worried. If she stole once, she can steal again. The late wife's jewels, for example, the ones he keeps in his room. Mrs. Davis became thoughtful, but she cleans that room every week. If she was going to steal, she would have already done it. Or she's waiting for the right moment. A smart thief doesn't steal on the first day. They wait to gain trust, then take the most valuable piece and disappear. The seed had been planted. 2 days later, Sonia called the house. Mrs. Davis, I had a bad feeling. Have you checked Richard's late wife's jewels, just to make sure everything's there? Why? It's just that if Claudia has already taken something, it would be terrible to find out too late. Mrs. Davis hesitated. I don't know if I should touch Mr. Caldwell's things. You're not going to touch anything. Just look. If everything's there, perfect. If something's missing, tell him. It's your duty, Mrs. Davis. You've worked there for years. You have to protect the house. The cook hung up, her heart pounding. She waited for Richard to leave for the restaurant, went up to his room, opened the drawer where he kept his late wife's jewelry box. Everything was very organized. The earrings, the rings, the bracelets. She counted the pieces, checked again. Everything was there, except the necklace. The gold necklace, with the heart pendant, that his wife always wore. The last gift Richard had given her had disappeared. Mrs. Davis felt her blood run cold, quickly closed the drawer, and called Sonia. The necklace is gone. Sonia feigned surprise perfectly. I knew it. I knew it would happen. Tell Richard, he's still at the restaurant. Tell him now. And look, before he gets here, it would be good to check her room before she hides it somewhere else, or sells it. I can't do that. It would be invading her privacy. Then ask Richard to do it. But quickly, Mrs. Davis, before it's too late. What Mrs. Davis didn't know was that Sonia had entered the mansion 3 days before, in the dead of night. She had a copy of the key she had kept months ago, when she was still welcome in the house. She had stolen the necklace from Richard's room, gone up to Claudia's room, and planted the necklace inside the old makeup case that lay on her nightstand. A place that was too obvious, but that was the plan. To make it seem like Claudia was so arrogant that she didn't even bother to hide it well. When Richard arrived home that night, Mrs. Davis was waiting for him at the door. "Mr. Caldwell, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "What is it?" "It's about your late wife's necklace, the gold one with the heart. It was in the drawer and it disappeared." Richard froze. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "I checked the drawer today. Everything's there except the necklace. It must have fallen. It must be somewhere else." "No, sir. I know that drawer. I clean it every week. The necklace was there last week. Now it's not." Richard ran up the stairs, opened the drawer. He rummaged through everything, through the small boxes on the floor, picked up the earrings, the rings, looking for the necklace. It wasn't there. It was the last physical memory of his wife, the jewel she loved most, the gift he had chosen so carefully, and it had disappeared. Mrs. Davis appeared at the door. "Sir, I don't want to accuse anyone, but the only person who enters that room besides you is Claudia." Richard closed his eyes. He didn't want to believe it, but the doubt was there, and it was stronger than his desire to trust. "Where is her room?" "On the 3rd floor." "But, sir..." He walked past Mrs. Davis and went up the stairs. His heart pounded uncontrollably. Anger and fear mixed inside him. He knocked on the room door. Claudia opened it. She had just showered, her hair wet, a simple nightgown. "Mr. Caldwell, is everything okay? I need to enter your room now." She stepped back, confused. Richard entered, looked around. The tiny room, the tidy bed, few clothes, everything very simple. "What are you looking for, sir?" "A gold necklace with a heart pendant." Claudia felt her breath catch. "I don't have any necklace." He started looking, opened her backpack, only old clothes, a worn book, the old photo of Leo. "Richard, please, I didn't take anything, I swear." He opened the nightstand drawer. Nothing but socks and some undergarments. He looked under the bed. Nothing. He was about to give up when he saw the old case on the nightstand, small, made of faded pink plastic, the kind of thing someone keeps for years and doesn't throw away. He picked up the case. "Sir, that's mine. It doesn't have." He opened it, and there, between an old lipstick and a broken blush, was the necklace. Richard held the jewel, his heart racing, wishing it was a mistake, that there was some explanation. He looked at Claudia. She was pale, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with astonishment. "I didn't put that there. Someone put it. I swear someone put it." "How did it get here then?" "I don't know, but I didn't take it." "Why would I take it? For what?" Richard squeezed the necklace in his hand. "I believed in you. I gave you a job when no one else would. I let you be near my daughter. And you steal from me?" "I didn't steal. The necklace is in my room because someone put it here. Think, Mr. Caldwell. Why would I keep it in such an obvious place? If I were a thief, I would have hidden it better." He stopped. That made sense. It was too obvious. Too stupid, but the anger was stronger than reason. "Get your things and leave now." "What?" "Get out of my house now before I call the police." Claudia burst into sobs. "Please, give me a chance. Let me prove it. Let me find out who did this." "No, I've given you too many opportunities. Now." Tears streamed down her face nonstop. "You don't trust me. You never trusted me. Pack your things." He left the room, slammed the door, went downstairs, locked himself in the office, held the necklace so tightly it hurt his hand. He wanted to feel relief for having recovered it. He wanted to feel anger for having been stolen from. But he only felt an enormous emptiness, because deep down a little voice told him he had made a mistake. But it was too late to listen. Claudia packed her bags, her hands trembling so much she could barely fold her clothes. She packed everything she owned, which was almost nothing. Her 3 pieces of clothing, the worn book, the old photo of Leo. She sat on the bed, looked around. That little room had become a home. For the first time in her adult life, she had had a place of her own, where she could sleep without fear, where she woke up with hope. Now she was going to lose everything. Mrs. Davis appeared at the door. "You'd better leave quickly. Mr. Caldwell is very upset." "I didn't do anything, Mrs. Davis. You have to believe me." The cook averted her gaze. "I believed you. I defended you with the other staff when they spoke ill of you. And look how it ended. Someone set me up. Someone put the necklace in my room. If they did, you'll have to prove it. But now you'd better go." Claudia grabbed her backpack. She went downstairs. She was almost at the door when Isabella appeared at the top of the stairs. "Clau, what are you doing?" Claudia stopped. She couldn't look at the girl. "I have to go, Bella." "Where?" "Far away." "Why? What happened?" "Because sometimes things don't work out and you have to leave." Isabella started running down the stairs. "No, you promised you'd stay." Claudia knelt, held the girl's shoulders. "I know I promised, but sometimes you can't keep it because the world doesn't let you. But you didn't do anything wrong." "I didn't, but your dad doesn't believe that." "Then convince him. Show him you're good." Claudia hugged the girl tightly, tried to etch that moment into her memory. The smell of her child's shampoo, the way Isabella squeezed her teddy bear with one arm and her with the other. "You are the most special girl I have ever met. Never forget that. You promised you'd stay." "You promised!" Claudia let go, stood up. She no longer had the strength to stay. She opened the door. "Clau, come back, please, come back." She went down the entrance steps. She heard Isabella crying, screaming, "Clau, don't leave. I'll behave. I'll do everything right, but don't leave." Claudia kept walking. Each step hurt more than the last. Tears blurred her vision. She turned the corner. She heard Isabella's voice getting further and further away. "Clau," and then silence. She stopped in a park, 3 blocks ahead in the city's outskirts. She sat on a bench. It was almost 9 p.m. It was cold, and it started to rain. She pulled out her phone. She had $240 in her account. That was all she had. She had nowhere to go. She knew no one in the city. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Claudia. This is Sister Agnes." The nun's voice finally broke her armor. Claudia burst into sobs. "Sister, what happened, my child?" And she told everything between sobs. About the mansion, about Isabella, about the accusations, about the necklace, about losing everything. "Where are you now?" "In a park. I don't know the name. Send me your location. I'll send someone to pick you up. You can't stay on the street." Half an hour later, Father Michael appeared. He took her to a church shelter. Simple, clean, safe. "You can stay here while you sort things out." Claudia thanked him, took a hot shower, put on donated clean clothes, lay on a narrow bed, but couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything she had lost. Her job, her home, Isabella, and worst of all, the opportunity to help Richard find Leo. They were so close. The detective had good leads. Now she would never know. At the mansion, Isabella wouldn't stop crying. Richard tried to talk to her, but the girl locked herself in and shouted at him to go away. He went down to the office, opened the drawer, took out the necklace. It was beautiful, delicate. His wife wore it every day. She said it was the symbol of their love. Now it was back, but it brought him no relief, only an enormous emptiness. Because deep down, very deep down, he knew he had made a terrible mistake, but it was too late to go back. 3 days passed. Isabella didn't leave her room, didn't eat, barely drank water. On the morning of the 4th day, Richard heard a strange noise. He ran upstairs, forced the door open. Isabella was in a corner of the room, curled up, hugging her teddy bear, rocking back and forth, her gaze lost, seeing nothing. Isabella. She didn't respond, didn't blink, kept rocking. Richard took her in his arms. She was cold, trembling. He took her to the hospital. The doctors examined her. "Dissociative crisis," the doctor explained. "Her body disconnected from emotions as a form of protection. It's common in children who have suffered consecutive traumas. She'll be fine, but she'll need intensive monitoring, therapy, possibly medication, and they'll have to identify what caused the crisis." Richard knew what had caused it. He had caused it. Isabella was admitted for observation. Richard spent the night in the room with her, held her little hand, silently begged for forgiveness. When she woke up, she looked at her father with empty eyes. "Where's Clau?" "She left." "Because you sent her away?" "Yes." Isabella turned her face away. "You're mean. I wanted to protect you. You didn't protect me. You sent away the only person who helped me." She closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Everyone leaves. Mom left. Clau left. One day you'll leave too, and I'll be alone." Richard felt a tightness in his chest. "I'll never leave you. You already did. You left me when you stopped playing with me after Mom died. You left me when you told Clau to stay away from me. You always leave me." He had no answer because she was right. He left the room, sat in the hallway, called the detective just to distract himself. "Mr. Caldwell, I managed to speak with the social worker. He remembers the case. He has important information. Can it wait a few days? I have a problem here." "Of course. But sir, the leads are good. I think we're close to finding your brother." Richard hung up. He should have been happy, excited, but he only felt emptiness. Because what good was it to have found his brother if in the process he had lost everything that mattered? Isabella was discharged. The doctors prescribed medication and therapy sessions 3 times a week. Richard hired a nurse, a serious, competent woman who took care of Isabella professionally, but without affection. The girl didn't react to anything. She ate because she was told to, showered because she was forced to, existed because she had no other option. A week later, after the first therapy session, when Isabella returned, Richard asked how it had been. "Is the doctor nice? And what did you talk about?" "About you." She said that sometimes adults do wrong things because they're scared, and that when we're scared, we hurt the people we love without meaning to. Richard swallowed hard. "And you think that's it? That I'm scared?" Isabella looked at him. "You are. You were scared when Mom died. Scared to be near me because I reminded you of her. Then you were scared of Clow. Now you're alone, and so am I." She turned and went up to her room. Richard stood there, his 7-year-old daughter's words cut deeper than any accusation, because she was right. He had been so afraid of suffering that he had pushed everyone away, and in the end, fear had only brought more suffering. 2 weeks after Claudia had left, on a Thursday afternoon, Isabella was in her room. The nurse had gone to the bathroom. She looked at the old cell phone her mother had given her. She hadn't used it in months. She turned it on. It still worked. She had an idea. If her father wasn't going to look for Claudia, she would find out the truth herself. She waited for the nurse to leave at the end of the day. She went down to the office. Her father was in the kitchen preparing coffee. She entered slowly, went to the desk. There were papers scattered, things from the investigation of Uncle Leo, but that wasn't what she was looking for. She opened the first drawer. Pens, notepads. The second, company documents. The third had a jewelry box. She opened it. There, inside, was the necklace that had caused everything. She looked at the jewel. It was pretty, delicate. Why would Claudia steal this? She never wore jewelry, never talked about money. It didn't make sense. She closed the drawer, went up to her father's room, opened the nightstand. Inside was the old cell phone, the one he used before buying the new one. She picked it up, took it to her room, turned it on. It still worked, but the battery was low. She opened the call history. She went back in the history to the day the necklace had disappeared. She saw Sonia's name. 3 calls. That day, she wrote down the times on a piece of paper. She had another idea. She remembered her mother's drawer, where she kept old things. She went to her parents' old room, opened the drawer. Inside were photos, letters, and a small box with old costume jewelry. She rummaged through the box. At the bottom, she found something strange, a folded paper, very small. She opened it. It was a yellow post-it note with handwriting she didn't recognize. Final phase. Take necklace from his room, plant in her room, do it in the early morning on Thursday. Isabella stared at the paper, read it again and again. Someone had written a plan to incriminate Claudia. She carefully put the paper away, along with her notes on Sonia's calls. Now she had evidence. It wasn't conclusive, but she had it. She went to the office. Her father was there, reviewing documents. She knocked on the door. "Honey, come in." She entered, closed the door, placed the papers on the table. "What is this?" "Proof." Richard picked up the post-it, read it, turned pale. "Where did you find this?" "In Mom's drawer." "Someone hid it there." "This doesn't prove it was Sonia." Isabella placed the other paper, the one with the calls. She called 3 times on the day the necklace disappeared, talked to Mrs. Davis, set everything up. Richard looked at the papers, the handwriting on the post-it, the calls. It could be a coincidence, it could be a forgery, but deep down he knew it wasn't. "You sent Clow away because you thought she had stolen, but she didn't steal. That lying woman did all this." "Honey," Isabella shook her head. "You made a mistake. You didn't believe Clow. Now you have to fix it. Go to her, ask for forgiveness, make her come back, if she doesn't want to." Isabella looked at her father, her little eyes hard. "Then you lose us. You lose her and you're left alone, because I won't live with you if you don't go get her." It was an ultimatum from a 7-year-old child, but it was worth more than any adult threat, because it came from the heart. Richard looked at his daughter, saw determination in her, strength, the same strength her mother had. "You're right. I made a mistake. Then fix it." He nodded. "I'll fix it. I promise." Isabella left the office. Richard was left alone with the papers, picked up his phone, called Sonia. "Richard, what a surprise. What is it?" "We need to talk about the necklace you planted in Claudia's room." Silence on the other end of the line. "I don't know what you're talking about. I have proof." "Sonia, your calls, the note, everything." Another silence. Then, You can't prove anything. I can, and I will. I'll show it to the police. I'll sue you for trespassing, for planting false evidence, for everything. Her voice grew cold. You won't do that. Yes, I will. Unless you confess now. She laughed, a bitter laugh. Fine, I confess. I planned everything. I invented the fake labor lawsuit. I planted the necklace. I destroyed her life. And you know why? Because you're mine, always have been. And I wasn't going to let some worthless maid steal you from me. I was never yours, and you just lost any opportunity you had. He hung up, blocked her number, sat in the chair, his heart pounding. He had the confession. He had the proof. He knew the truth. Now only one thing remained. Find Claudia and beg her forgiveness. He picked up his phone, opened the recorder app. Everything was there. Every word Sonia had said. Isabella appeared at the door. Did you get her? She confessed everything. And now? Now I'm going to find Claudia. The girl gave a small smile. The first in weeks. Can I go with you? Of course. Richard grabbed his coat, stopped before leaving, called Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis, Claudia didn't steal anything. It was all a scheme by Sonia, she confessed. Silence on the other end of the line. Then a broken voice. My God, I helped them do that to the girl. I went to the drawer to get the necklace because Sonia told me to. You didn't know, ma'am. You were manipulated just like me, but we all should have defended her better. Richard took a deep breath. I'm going to look for her now. When she comes back, we'll talk. He hung up. He took Isabella's hand. The two left the mansion. There's only one problem, Isabella said on the way. What? We don't know where she is. Richard stopped. The girl was right. Claudia had left without leaving an address. He pulled out his phone, looked up the number she had given when she started working, dialed. It rang, went to voicemail. He tried again, same result. He thought, where would she go? She had no family, no friends in the city. Then he remembered the children's home. She had grown up in St. Michael's children's home. Maybe someone there would know where she was. He got in the car with Isabella, drove to the address he had in the files from the investigation into Leo. The building was abandoned. Rusty gates, broken windows. Weeds grew in the cracks of the concrete. He called the detective. Frank, do you have the contact of anyone who worked at St. Michael's children's home? Yes, Sister Agnes. She was the coordinator of the place. Now she works at a church shelter. Give me the contact. Minutes later, Richard called the nun. Hello, Sister Agnes. My name is Richard. I need to find Claudia Ferreira Duarte. It's urgent. The nun's voice hardened. You're the man who sent her away, accused of theft. I was, but I was wrong. I have proof it was a setup. I need to apologize to her. Silence. Then, how do I know you won't hurt her again? Because my daughter is here beside me, and she wouldn't allow it. Isabella took the phone. Hi, I'm Isabella. Clau is my friend. My dad made a mistake, but now he wants to fix it. Please, help us. The nun sighed. Claudia is at Street Joseph's Shelter, on Flamboyant Street, 342, in Tijuca. But if you hurt her again, you'll answer to me and to God. I won't hurt her, I promise. Half an hour later, Richard stopped in front of an old, but well-maintained, mansion. There was a sign, Street Joseph's Shelter. He got out of the car with Isabella, rang the doorbell. A woman in her 50s opened it. Can I help you? I need to speak with Claudia. It's urgent. The woman looked at him with suspicion. You're her employer. I was, but I need to speak with her. Please. The woman hesitated, but Isabella stepped forward. Please, ma'am. I'm her friend. I just want to see her. The woman's gaze softened upon seeing the girl. Wait here. She went inside, returned 5 minutes later. Claudia wasn't behind her. The woman looked at Richard. She doesn't want to come down. She says she has nothing to talk to you about. Richard felt his chest tighten. You can tell her I have proof. Proof that it was a setup, that I know the truth. The woman went upstairs again, stayed there for a while. When she returned, Claudia came behind her. She came down the stairs slowly. She was thinner, her face tired, her eyes dull. When she saw Isabella, she stopped halfway down the stairs. Bella, Clau. Isabella let go of her father's hand and ran. She ran up the steps, hugged Claudia tightly, returned. Claudia hugged the girl, closed her eyes. Let that hug heal some of her pain. When she let go, she looked at Richard. Her expression was hard. What do you want, Mr. Caldwell? To apologize. He went up a few steps. He stopped close enough to talk, but far enough to respect her space. I made a mistake. I made a big mistake. I believed Sonia's lies. I believed you had stolen, but I was wrong. He pulled out his phone, played the recording. Sonia's voice came clearly from the device, confessing everything. Claudia listened in silence. When it finished, She looked at him. This doesn't change anything. Of course it does. It proves you're innocent. I was always innocent, but you didn't believe me when I needed you to. You believe me now because you have a recording, because you have proof. I know, and I'm sorry. A sorry isn't enough. She started going up again. Claudia, wait. She stopped, but didn't turn around. I have no excuse. I was a coward. I was afraid to trust, afraid of being hurt again. And in the end, I hurt you. I hurt Isabella, and I hurt myself too. Claudia stood still, her back to him. I spent my whole life being judged in the children's home, in jobs, everywhere. They always thought I was worth less, that I didn't deserve trust, and I accepted it because I had no alternative. She slowly turned around. But in your house it was different. For the first time, I thought I had found a place where I could be myself, where I didn't need to prove anything. And then you did exactly like everyone else. You judged me, you condemned me, you discarded me. Tears began to fall. So, no, Mr. Caldwell, a sorry is not enough, because you broke the only thing I had, the hope that someone would finally believe in me. Richard went up another step. You're right. I broke your trust, but I want to fix it. Not because of the recording, but because without you, we are no longer a family. I am no longer myself. Claudia shook her head. I can't go back. I can't work in a place where they don't trust me. Then don't come back as an employee. Come back as part of the family. Come back because Isabella needs you. Because I need you. Isabella pulled Claudia's hand. Please, Clau. I was so sad without you. They even put me in the hospital. I can't eat. I can't be happy. Only you make me happy. Claudia knelt in front of the girl. You don't need me, Bella. You're strong. You'll be fine. I won't. Not without you. Claudia looked into the girl's eyes. She saw pain there. Real pain. She looked at Richard. He was there. Vulnerable. His eyes red. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared to go back and have everything happen again. That you'll doubt me at the first difficulty. It won't happen. I promise you. How can I believe that? Because I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Proving that I trust you. That I believe in you. That you're not just important to Isabella. You're important to me. And Sonia, I'm going to sue her. Trespassing, defamation, planting evidence. She's going to pay for what she did. And the staff, Mrs. Davis, Mr. Henderson, I'll talk to each one. I'll explain everything. If anyone doesn't accept it, they no longer work here. Claudia remained silent. Her heart told her to go back. Her head screamed to protect herself. Isabella took her face in her little hands. Please, I promise I'll behave. I'll eat everything. I'll go to sleep early, but come back. Claudia laughed through tears. You already behave, Bella. You don't need to promise anything. Then you'll come back? She looked at Richard. If I come back, it won't be as a cleaner. I know. And I'm not coming back just for Isabella. I'm coming back because I want to too. Because that house became my home, and you became my family. Richard took the last step, stood in front of her. Then come back. Please, come home. Claudia took a deep breath. Okay, I'll come back. Isabella screamed with joy. She hugged Claudia and her father at the same time. The three stood there hugging in the middle of the stairs. The woman who had opened the door watched from afar, smiling. Claudia wiped her face, looked at Richard. But one thing. If one day you doubt me again, if you let someone fill your head with doubts, I'll leave and I won't come back. It won't happen again, I swear. She nodded. Then let's go home. Back at the mansion, Mrs. Davis was at the door. When she saw Claudia get out of the car, she ran to her. My girl, I'm so sorry. She hugged her tightly. She was crying. Forgive me. I was a fool. I believed that viper. I made you suffer. Claudia returned the hug. It's okay, Mrs. Davis. It wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. I should have believed you. I should have defended you. Mr. Henderson appeared from the garden, approached slowly with his cap in his hands. Miss Claudia, I apologize too. I was very rude to you. I shouldn't have been. Claudia gave a tired smile. You're forgiven, Mr. Henderson, truly. The caretaker quickly wiped his eyes and went back to work. Isabella pulled Claudia by the hand. Come see my room. I cleaned everything your way. The two ran upstairs. Richard watched them go, feeling lighter-hearted than he had in months. He entered the mansion, went to the office, picked up his phone, and called his lawyer. Attorney Miller, I need to sue someone for trespassing, defamation, planting false evidence, and emotional distress. Who? Sonia Harrison. And I have a recording of her confessing everything. It's an open and shut case, Richard. With that evidence, she'll pay dearly. I want the maximum penalty the law allows. She needs to understand that she can't destroy people's lives without consequences. I'll start the process tomorrow. When the lawyer left, Richard went upstairs, stopped at Isabella's bedroom door. Claudia was sitting on the bed. Isabella was showing her all her drawings from the past few weeks. Sad drawings, lonely people, dark colors. I made this one the day you left. I'm alone. I'm cold. Claudia carefully picked up the drawing. You draw very well, Bella. The doctor said drawing helps when you're sad. It helped a little, but not as much as you coming back. The two smiled. Richard knocked on the door. Can I come in? Isabella nodded. He entered and sat in the armchair near the bed. Clau, I wanted to tell you something about Leo. The investigation. We were close to finding him before all this happened. The detective has good leads. Claudia grew serious. And you want to continue looking? I do, but only if you want to too. You were the one who told me about him. You kept him alive in your memory when no one else remembered. So this search is ours, both of ours. She felt her eyes sting. I truly want to find him. Then we'll find him together. Isabella raised her hand. I'll help too. The three laughed. That night, Claudia had dinner with them for the first time, not as an employee. She sat at the table, talked, and laughed. Mrs. Davis prepared Isabella's favorite dish, pasta with tomato sauce and cheese. The girl ate everything, even had seconds. Richard looked at his daughter and then at Claudia. Thank you for coming back, for giving me another chance. Claudia gave a small smile. Thank you for coming to get me, for believing in me. I will always believe in you. From now on, always. 2 months passed. Routine had settled in. Claudia was truly part of the family. She had dinner with them every day, went out for walks with Isabella, talked with Richard late into the night about everything and nothing. The lawsuit against Sonia was ongoing. Her lawyer tried a settlement. Richard refused. He wanted a trial. He wanted her to pay publicly for what she had done. And the investigation into Leo continued, slow but steady. On a Tuesday morning, the detective called. Mr. Caldwell, I think we found him. What? A man named Leo Caldwell works as a street food chef in Maple Creek, a charming town in upstate New York. He caters events, parties, that kind of thing. He has a social media profile. I sent you the link. Richard opened his phone, went to the profile, and froze. The photos showed a 33-year-old man, short beard, dark hair, eyes identical to his own. There was even an old photo, the man as a child, with the same features as the portrait Richard kept. It's him, Richard whispered. My God, it's him, he called Claudia, showed her the photos. She put her hand to her mouth. Leo, it's him. I recognize him, the way he smiles, the shape of his face. It's him. Are you sure? Yes, it's him, Richard called the detective back. Can you get his address? Where does he work? I already have it. He has a fixed spot in Maple Creek Town Square every Saturday. He cooks there. Which square? Maple Creek Town Square, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Today was Tuesday. Richard looked at the calendar. Saturday, 4 days. He called Isabella, told her everything. We found Uncle Leo. Really? It's true. Can I go with you when you talk to him? Of course you can. The following days passed slowly. Richard barely slept. He kept imagining what he would say, how he would introduce himself. Hi, I'm your twin brother whom you haven't seen in 29 years. It seemed crazy. Claudia noticed his nervousness. Are you scared? Very. What if he doesn't remember me? What if he doesn't want to know me? He will. Leo always talked about you. He always wanted to find you. But so many years have passed. He might have changed. He might have given up. Or he might have spent his whole life waiting for this moment. Just like you. Richard smiled. Thank you for being here. For everything. She took his hand. I'll always be here. Saturday arrived. The three woke up early. They had breakfast in silence. The tension was palpable. They got in the car. It took them almost 2 hours to get to Maple Creek. When they arrived at the square, it was 11:30 a.m. The place was crowded. There were craft stalls, live music, families strolling, and in a corner near a large tree, there was a food stall. The sign read, Leo Caldwell, Street Food Gastronomy. Richard stopped. His heart was beating so hard it hurt. It's him. Claudia took his hand. Breathe. Everything will be fine. The three walked slowly towards the stall. There was a small line, and behind the counter, preparing the dishes with precise movements, was him. Leo was identical to Richard. The same dark eyes, the same face shape, the same concentrated expression when cooking. He wore a simple apron. His hands moved quickly, seasoning, assembling the dishes carefully. Claudia saw him first. She squeezed Richard's hand. It's him. It's really him. It's him. Richard couldn't move. He stood there about 10 meters away, looking at the brother he had given up for dead so many years ago. Isabella pulled her father's hand. "Go, Dad, go talk to him." But Richard was paralyzed. Almost 30 years of guilt, of longing, of pain, all coming to the surface at once. It was Claudia who made the decision. She let go of Richard's hand and walked to the stall. There was no longer a line. Leo was cleaning the counter, preparing for the next batch of customers. "Leo." He looked up, smiled kindly. "Hi, what can I get for you?" Claudia felt a lump in her throat. That smile was the same as the boy from the children's home. "Leo, it's me, Claudia, from Street Michael's children's home." He stopped, looked at her properly. His expression changed. "Val, my Val," she nodded, crying. "It's me." Leo came out from behind the counter, looked at her as if seeing a ghost. "My God, I thought I'd never see you again." He hugged her tightly. The two stood there crying, hugging each other. When they released, Leo wiped his tears. "How did you find me?" "I didn't find you. Your brother did." "My brother?" Claudia pointed. Richard was standing a few feet away with Isabella beside him. Leo looked, turned pale. The two men stood motionless, looking at each other, seeing their own reflection, what could have been if life hadn't separated them. It was Leo who took the first step. He walked slowly to Richard, stopped in front of him. "You're Richard?" Richard could barely speak. He nodded. "I'm your brother, your twin brother. They separated us when we were little. I thought you had died, but you were alive the whole time." Leo looked at him, then at Claudia, then back at Richard. "I always knew I had a brother. I never forgot. I thought they had abandoned me, that they didn't want to look for me. No, we looked. The whole family looked. But they said you had drowned. They said there was nothing to be done." Tears began to roll down Leo's face. "I didn't die. I was here waiting. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner." Leo took a step forward and hugged his brother. The two stood there hugging in the middle of the square, crying. Almost 30 years of separation, of pain, of longing. Everything was released in that embrace. People around stopped to look. Some took pictures. Others cried with them. When they let go, Leo looked at Isabella. "And who is this little princess?" Richard picked her up. "She's Isabella, my daughter, your niece." Isabella waved shyly. "Hi, Uncle Leo." Leo smiled, that same crooked smile Richard had. "Hi, Isabella, nice to meet you." Claudia approached, wiping her tears. "Leo, there's so much to tell you. I know. We have a lifetime to catch up." Leo closed his stall early that day. The four went to a nearby cafe, sat at a reserved table, and talked for hours. Leo told everything. How he had been kidnapped at the park, how he woke up in a strange house, how the couple who kidnapped him said he was their son now, how he grew up thinking that was normal until the parents died in the accident, how he ended up in the children's home, how he met Claudia, how he ran away at 16 to look for his family. "I even went back to that park, you know? I went there. I thought maybe someone would remember me, but there was no one. That's when I gave up." Richard took his brother's hand. "I never gave up. I never stopped looking. I just didn't know where to look. And it was Clau who reminded me of you. She told you." Leo looked at Claudia with gratitude. "You saved us, Val. You saved both of us." She shook her head. "I just did what was right." Richard told about his wife, about her death, about Isabella and her social phobia, about how Claudia had helped. Leo looked at his niece with affection. "You're very brave. You know that?" Isabella smiled. "Clau says that too, because it's true." They stayed until the cafe closed. When they left, it was already getting dark. "Come spend a few days with us," Richard said. "We still have so much to talk about. I don't want to be a bother." "You're no bother at all. You're my family." Leo looked at his brother, saw sincerity in his eyes, saw the same longing he felt, the desire to recover lost time. "Okay, I'll go." They returned to the city together. Leo in the car with them, talking the whole way. When they arrived at the mansion, Leo stopped at the door. "You live here? Wow, it's huge." Richard laughed. "Come on in, Mrs." Davis almost fainted upon seeing the two brothers together. "My God, they're identical," Leo laughed. "That's what they say." The following days were about reconnection. Leo visited Richard's restaurant. They cooked together, exchanged recipes, laughed at their similarities. They discovered they had the same gestures, the same way of holding a knife, the same way of tasting food before serving. "You inherited it from Dad," Richard explained. "He was a chef too. He taught you when you were little, remember? Sometimes I get flashes, a big kitchen, a man with a white hat, but I thought it was a dream. It wasn't. It was a memory." Leo learned everything about his family, about his mother who died of sadness, about his father who worked himself to death, about the tireless search that never stopped. They missed you every day until the last day of their lives. Leo cried. He cried for the parents he never truly knew, for the stolen years, for the lost childhood. But he also smiled, because he had found his brother, because he had a family again. Isabella quickly grew fond of her uncle. One night, she asked, "Uncle Leo, are you going to live with us?" Leo looked at Richard. "I don't know, Princess. I have my work in Maple Creek." "But you can work here," Richard said, approaching. "You can work with me at the restaurant, or open your own business here. Whatever you want, just stay." Leo remained silent. "I spent almost 30 years alone, thinking I had no one, and now you're offering me a family?" "We're not offering. You are family. Always have been." Leo wiped his eyes. "Then I accept. I'll stay." Isabella jumped with joy, hugged her uncle tightly. Claudia watched from afar, smiling. The family was complete. That night, the four had dinner together. Mrs. Davis prepared a feast, enough food for more than 10 people. This is a celebration. The family is reunited. They ate, laughed, told stories. Leo talked about the children's home, about the pranks he played with Claudia, about how she saved him from bullies. Richard talked about his childhood, about games in the garden, about how the two were inseparable. Isabella just listened, fascinated. When they finished, Leo raised his glass, a toast to the family, to Claudia who found us, to Richard who never gave up, to Isabella who teaches us to be strong, and to our parents who, wherever they are, must be happy. Everyone toasted, crying and smiling at the same time. After dinner, Richard and Leo went out to the garden. They stood there looking at the stars. "It still seems unreal," Leo said. "After so long thinking I was alone, I discover you've been looking for me the whole time. I promised I'd find you the day you disappeared. It took a while, but I kept my word." Leo looked at his brother. "Thank you for not giving up. I was never going to give up. You're my brother, my other half." They fell silent, a comfortable silence, of those who understand each other without needing to speak. Inside, Claudia was tucking Isabella into bed. "Clau?" "Yes, we're the most amazing family in the world, aren't we, Claudia?" She smiled. "Of course we are, because we're not family by blood, but we chose each other." "That's true. And sometimes the family we choose is better than the family we have." Isabella closed her eyes, smiling. "I choose you, all of you, and we choose you too, Bella, always." The end.